Artificial intelligence is no longer the pipe dream of scientists and entrepreneurs. Ottawa's Contextere is using AI to make a real impact on the lives of blue-collar workers. Today, we'll find out how their high-tech solution is helping keep workers safe. We've also got Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall here with tips for startups looking to attract investment. That's this week on Techopia Live. Welcome to Techopia Live. I'm your host this week, Rosa Saba, filling in for Craig Lord. I'd first like to introduce you to our sponsor guest, Mike Jerrier, partner at Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your firm and what you do to help local startups attract investment?
Yeah, thanks. We're a 70-man law firm in Ottawa. We do a range of services from IP to corporate services for tech companies and a range of other type of companies. And we help them figure out what they're looking for, figure out how to get some money for them, and help them get on the road to success.
That's great, and we actually have one such company here today. We have Gabe Batstone, the CEO of Contextere, here joining us. Gabe, can you tell us a bit about how your company uses artificial intelligence to make work safer?
Sure, thank you, Rosa. Our mission is to transform the future of work, and specifically we looked at, as you said, blue-collar workers. And something we found as I traveled the globe, I've been to Afghanistan and Russia and, of course, all across North America, to army arsenals and factory floors, and something struck us, that the technology that we all take for granted today hasn't made it to the last tactical mile, right? The place where people put warm hands on cold steel. They install, they maintain, they operate complex equipment. And that equipment is the key to make sure planes fly, trains roll, the lights go on. And so why hadn't that happened? So that was a bit of our why question. And when we got to the safety side, we said, why do 13 workers die every day on the job? Right? In the United States, in Canada, it's one a day. Right? Given all the technology and knowledge and IT that we have, how is that happening? So that was a bit of the start of the journey to how do we solve the solution. And what we found was a now what problem. That right now, across North America and around the globe, there are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, standing beside a piece of complex equipment going, now what? They're actually not sure what the next step is. So how is it that we have massive enterprise data, big data everywhere, right? Knowledge for everyone, mobile devices, supercomputer in our pocket, otherwise known as a phone today. How do we have all that and none of it's making to help these workers answer that now what? And so we believe the problem was weaving together a variety of technologies, AI being at the heart of it, that the problem isn't a hardware one, like what to put on the device, it's actually a content one, is what's the right thing to tell the person at the right time on the right device to get the outcome you want. So we kind of look at it in a way to simplify it a bit of, imagine Siri, but for a blue-collar worker, right? I can say, hey, where's the best restaurant, and get an answer, no problem. Well, why can't a worker walk up to a machine and say, what are the tools that I need to complete this job? When was the last time you were serviced? Well, we can, and that became Contextere's mission, is to provide real-time, actionable intelligence to those blue-collar workers.
And now you're obviously a member here of the Invest Ottawa Accelerator. You've also got, from what I understand, some support from a program in New York as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how those experiences have helped your company grow?
Sure. You know, when we started, Carl Byers is a co-founder and I, and, you know, we're not the youngest entrepreneurs, right? So we had experience, 2 decades of working in these environments. So the first place we went was to future customers, right? So we got Lockheed Martin, to give us a $1.1 million contract very early on to prove out this technology. And then we worked with BMW, and we signed a partnership with Samsung. So we got the big corporates around us, but you still need to nurture your company and grow. And so we look for where are good places to innovate, right? And Invest Ottawa, which became the Innovation Center at Bayview Yards, was something that was really attractive to us as people who both live in Ottawa now. And so immediately we're drawn to the culture, to the collaboration, and frankly to the cost. It was a great environment to grow a young company. Having said that, like most Canadian startups, the reality is Canada isn't your end game. Right, the United States and hopefully globally is. And when we looked at the United States, what better place than New York, right? If you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere, and there's actually a lot of truth to that. But again, how does a small Canadian tech startup go get space in Midtown Manhattan? So we had to find that, and we found it in a place called The Company, which is a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan, 43rd and Madison, great address, but where we can have a collaborative working space that we can afford. And of course, we were linked to that through our investment from BMW, where we had worked in Brooklyn for 6 months doing innovation very early on in those days. So I think it's that community of people that you surround yourself with more than the space, and it's, who do you keep company with is so important. And so for us, keep company with your customers, keep company with other innovators, and keep your costs down, and then you survive to the next milestone.
Thank you. Obviously, the investment both from Ottawa and from New York has helped sort of put your company in the right place at the right time. Mike, your firm helps a lot of tech companies raise capital, a lot of companies like Contextere. What would you say is the most important step for a startup that's looking to get investment ready?
Well, obviously the good technology is one thing that makes everybody's ears perk up when they hear about your company, and they look at the technology and they look at the management and they go, these people we think we can invest with and we can make some money with. So many startups, though, run afoul of some of the most important small factors. And that's, you have to build the structure of the business. You have to be able to issue shares. You have to be able to keep track of your IP. If your IP's got some real heft to it, you got to do patent searches and patent applications. All of that costs money, but you know what? You got to spend that money in order to turn that technology into real money. And you see so many of the universities today focused in, whether it's MIT, Cal Poly, and some of the Canadian ones, McGill in particular, looking at the technology that they develop out of their grad students and using that to build their infrastructure and make more money. And that's the kind of thing that small companies tend to forget about, because they're afraid of spending the money and they won't have the money to pay their employees or pay themselves. So that's one area where you really have to concentrate. And the other area is the companies who are the most successful, in my experience, later on when they're raising serious money, are the companies who have proper shareholder agreements, proper employment agreements, proper share structure development, all their leases and all their agreements are in place. You'd be surprised at how many companies come to us and they have a shoebox full of paper, and you start asking them questions. They go, yeah, I think my mom gave us $15,000, and yeah, did she loan it to you? Did she invest in it? I don't know. Anyway, that kind of stuff needs to get fixed up, because when you're going to real investors, they want that all cleaned up. And when you're sloppy doing that, they worry that you'll be sloppy doing other things.
So you got to sort of stay professional, get everything set up, and then, as you said, spend money to make money. And speaking of making money, Contextere, you were recently named as one of the federal government's pre-qualified AI suppliers. Can you tell me a bit about what that opportunity means for your company?
Sure, and to be honest, it ties in a bit to what we were just talking about, which is sometimes you have to do things to prepare for the future, and they're at a cost now, and they aren't going to drive revenue immediately. And if you don't do those things like shareholder agreements, just to build off that, if you don't have proper structure in place, if you don't have a CRM, right, to show that your sales volume, you're going to spend a lot of time later doing it at a time that is very inefficient, right? So, I always say you can work in the business or on the business, and in the early days, you need to work in the business so that later, when the market's ready and you want to be working on the business, you don't have to go backwards and do it, because that's not the time you want to do it, and it'll come. Or you hope it does, because if it doesn't, it means you weren't successful, frankly. So expanding on that, very similar in the sales front. So you need, in our world, where we work with Lockheed Martin and the government of Canada and the state of New York, they have expectations in procurement, right? They just don't, no one's ever given me money, right, and just walked up, here's a pile of cash, do work. There are contracts, right? There are expectations. There are procurement rules. And so working with public services and Procurement Canada, if you want to do business with Canada, is one of those things you need to do. And I thought it was very forward-leaning of them to actually put this AI proposal out to say, hey, who are the people qualified in Canada to do this work, to get ahead of it? Because everybody is going to be saying they can do AI now, right? So every hot technology goes through the phase where everybody's an AR company, everybody's an IoT company. So it was good of them. So to answer your question, immediately there's no particular, there's no proposal that you bid on. It was a qualification process, but that process will lead to success in the future when they put bids through it. But also, it's already laid the groundwork in my conversations with the Canadian Army as an example. Like, well, who are you? Well, actually, I'm a qualified supplier, right, with the Canadian government. Like, okay, we should continue talking, right? So that, everything isn't X plus Y equals Z, right? Sometimes there's second and third order effects to when you grow a business, and they're very often forgotten in those early days. And another example is we just founded Contextere USA Corporation, right? Why would you do that? You're so few people. Because we know that to do business with certain government entities, we need a U.S. entity, right? So you set that up in advance. Don't do it when you need it, right? Because I can tell you when I got the Lockheed Martin F-22 contract sitting on my desk, but it's got a proviso that says must be with a U.S. corporation, not the time to go figure out how to set up a U.S. corporation. Now is. So to me, that contract falls into there. I give kudos to the Canadian government for being forward-thinking and getting ahead of it. And we're very proud to be one of the dozen or so companies that made that list.
As you mentioned, a lot of companies are sort of jumping on the AI bandwagon right now. So I guess this sort of gives you a bit of credibility both on the Canadian and the U.S. side to stand out among all those. And as you mentioned, you'll be prepared when Lockheed Martin, when those big companies come knocking. So thank you so much, Gabe and Mike, both for joining us. I'd like to thank Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall again for sponsoring this episode of Techopia Live. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our show's other sponsors. We have Number Crunch, providing virtual CFO services for SaaS firms here in Ottawa. We have TD Bank, offering specialized programs for tech firms. The University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of tech talent. We know we need them. Stratford Managers, offering services to help scale up your tech venture. And KRP Properties, providing so much more than just space. Give us a follow at Techopia OTT on Facebook and Twitter for updates, articles, and more videos like this one. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.